Hey, Psych students, welcome to Module 14, the second to last module in our series of modules for stats. I'm sure you guys are very excited that we're getting towards the end. I think Module 14, which covers correlation and regression, is going to be hopefully a little bit more familiar. A lot of people, especially if you took Psych 101, are more familiar with correlations. So we're going to be going over what a Pearson correlation is and kind of how to use that. So I thought we'd just kind of click in here and get going on it. So make sure to look over your learning objectives and then of course, look at your read and review. I have a couple of videos about positive and negative correlations. Correlations are just, associations or relationships between two different things. So this video helps kind of describe what a correlation is, the difference between positive and negative correlations. And then we'll get into why a correlation doesn't mean causation in a moment, but it also kind of dives into that idea as well. Correlations, when you graph them, you can kind of see on this scatter plot graph, you want the data to be kind of going in this either upward linear direction or this downward linear direction. So right now on the screen, the way that it's showing is a positive correlation because as one thing increases, the other thing increases. So this is time spent revising maybe an essay and then your class grade. So the more you work on your grade to get better, the higher your grade's going to get. So that would be an example of a positive correlation. Maybe you've seen a negative correlation as one thing goes up, the other thing goes down. And that would be where your graph would kind of do the exact opposite, right? And then the second video looks at regression. What a regression is, it really is trying to determine the strength and the relationship between one dependent variable and then a series of other variables, which would be like the independent variables. So this video goes over what a regression is, the differences between the independent dependent variables, and then the line of fit, which kind of we'll get into this as well. Remember that your dependent variables are the things that you're trying to measure. So I always try to tell my psych students, I know that they can kind of be a little bit confusing, but especially when you're gathering like quantitative data and you have like a survey that you're passing out that's going to measure something, maybe like happiness or marital satisfaction or stress or anxiety, anything like that. That's going to be your dependent variable because that's the thing that you're trying to measure. And then the other factors going around there, maybe gender or age or educational attainment, those would all be independent variables because those are going to be independent of the thing that you're trying to collect your data on, your measurement instrument. All right. You can try to think of it like that. The last thing that I have down here is how ice cream kills, which is one of my favorite examples in terms of correlation versus causation. So there was a study back in 2009, and this was done by the CDC. They said that ice cream sales are correlated with homicides in New York. So as you can see at this map, as the sales of ice cream increased, the number of murders increased as well. So you get this positive correlation going on with this map. So when you really think about it, though, is ice cream sales really impacting murder rates? And if you just think about this logically, you have to say no, because that really makes no sense. You're not going to have, the amount of ice cream impacting the amount of murders that are happening. So why does this sometimes happen in terms of you're finding a correlation between two things that doesn't really exist? So when two unrelated things kind of tie together, that can't be bound by really logic, that's where you're kind of getting this causation. All right. So you can't assume that just because one thing is causing the other thing, that's the reason for it. All right. So in this case, there's usually some hidden factors which makes them related. But again, it's not causing the other one. There's a relationship, but the cause is inaccurate. So in this case, you have to look at the weather. So the weather is actually increasing the rise in the ice cream sales and the homicides or the murder rates, because as it gets warmer in New York, more people are outside. And the more people that are outside, the more likelihood there is that there's going to be more people to become victims to homicide. And that is really the reason that these two things are correlated, not directly the ice cream sales versus people getting murdered, which is good because ice cream is delicious and we don't want to get murdered for eating ice cream. So we have to think of maybe the reason for that relationship. And just because we get a correlation doesn't mean that there's a cause. So that's like kind of the number one thing that psychologists use. Causation does not cause correlation. All right. So you can kind of see here, incorrect, ice cream sales, murder, no, ice cream sales and temperature is the main thing with the murder. So you can kind of see how that is going to be inversely related. All right. So that's just an example that hopefully will help you for your assignment, which is going to be your discussion right here. So when you get into your chapter 4 discussion, make sure that you have one APA reference and citation in there. But you're going to explain what is meant to be a positive relationship and a negative relationship between two different variables. We kind of already went over that in that video. So when you're going to get a positive correlation versus a negative one, you're going to describe an example for each situation where you'd expect a positive and a negative relationship, and you're going to identify the independent and dependent variables as well. And then the last thing, I want you guys to come up with a cause and effect explanation that's maybe not justified by a correlation. So just like the murder rate with the ice cream, I want you guys to kind of come up with an example and kind of explain that to your fellow students as well. You can have fun with that if you'd like. All right, so that's going to be your chapter 14 discussion question. Hopefully you guys can kind of have a little bit fun with this one, be creative, make sure you get your reference in there, make sure you complete your mind tap as well. But this is going to be the second to last module. I will see you guys in module 14. I'm sorry, from module 15 for the last module. And I hope you guys have fun coming up with your cause and effect relationships. All right, bye.